Welcome to the Trent England Show. Happy Friday. It's a nice Friday, actually, out there across central Oklahoma. Hopefully it is wherever you are. We have 4 important stories that you need to know about as we round out the week here on the Trent England Show. And the first one is that Oklahoma is first. Not in a ranking where we want to be first. We have taken the lead. I told you last year that this was going to happen during the course of this year. I predicted this almost a year ago, that Oklahoma would take the lead when it comes to incarceration. The percentage of our population that is in prison, we've been in the lead when it comes to female incarceration. We are now in the overall lead because Louisiana adopted some reforms that have actually begun slowing the growth of their prison population, and Oklahoma's prison population is growing, and we have passed up Louisiana, taken the #1 spot, which means we are #1 in the world when it comes to incarcerating our population. That's always, I think that we should look at how we compare to other states. I mean, when you look at a country like China, the whole country is kind of a prison, right? I mean, it's a totalitarian regime, no matter how nice they pretend to be. Winnie the Pooh is illegal in China. Did you know that? Because people were comparing, I think I shared this on the program months ago. You know, Winnie the Pooh and the current premier of China have similar, it's the politically correct way to say it, similar body shapes. And this had been noticed on Chinese social media. So anyhow, I mean, just to say, you know, right? You can have Winnie the Pooh, I think, in an Oklahoma prison, but not in the country of China at large. So you're just putting things in context. But we are #1 in incarceration, and this is a big deal because it costs us about $19,000 per prisoner to put people away in prison. So it's a big deal when it comes to the cost to our state budget. It's also a big deal when it comes to the cost to communities because, look, I mean, we know that when you put certain people in prison, when you take a nonviolent offender, you put that person in prison, they do not tend to actually get better, especially if they're drug addicted, especially if they have mental health problems. And the estimates are about 50% of our prison populations are in that category with addiction and oftentimes it's both, addiction and mental health problems, right? This is something we can do better in Oklahoma. And if, you know, there are some folks out there who are still, you know, I'm just tough on crime, we want to lock them all up, that is mindless, right? I mean, look, people deserve to be punished when they do things that are evil and harmful to other people, right? They do deserve punishment, right? But we can be smart, we can be proportional, we can be efficient, and we can be effective when it comes to punishment here in the great state of Oklahoma, can't we? So this should be just another push for all of us as Oklahomans to say we can and we demand that this be done better. We can do better and we demand that it be done better here in Oklahoma. So that is our #1 story. That was in the Tulsa World and various other places. #2, Michigan is following in the footsteps of Oklahoma. This is good news for both states. Oklahoma has adopted a push toward work requirements for able-bodied working-age people who are on medical welfare, Sooner Care, Oklahoma's version of Medicaid, right? And Michigan now has, the Michigan legislature has sent a bill to Governor Snyder there to do the same thing in Michigan, to say, look, if you're on welfare and you're an able-bodied person, and I mean the exemptions, I read through the list of exemptions and I thought, I'm not going to read these on the air because it's a long and complicated list, right? I mean, basically, if you're not, you know, medically fragile, you're not elderly, you're not a student. I mean, even if you're a working age person, if you're a student, you're not in treatment for drug addiction, right? It exempts people who just came out of prison. Yeah, here I am going through the list, but it has all. The point is, right? These work requirements. It's not like, you know, somebody who's 80 years old and living in dire poverty and very sick. Nobody's requiring those people to work, even though some of the reporting on this that I've seen kind of makes it sound that way. Not true. What we're saying is, if you want taxpayers to pay for your health care, you should actually be out there either getting job training, at least looking for work, and in this economy, as we talked about yesterday, you should actually probably have a job. So good for Michigan, good for Oklahoma that we got there actually first. The Trump Department of Justice is using an Obama Department of Justice tactic against Obamacare. Have you seen this story yet? Even if you've seen the story, it probably has not been pointed out that this is an Obama administration tactic. Typically, the way it works, an attorney general, the attorney general is the lawyer for the government, right? Whether at the state or the federal level, the U.S. Attorney General's office is in charge of defending federal laws. But the Obama administration had, in several cases, had taken the position that, we know this is a federal law and we know it's our job to defend it, but we're just going to decide that it's unconstitutional and we're not going to defend it. And that basically means that if there's a lawsuit over it, it's going to go away. The Trump administration has now said that about parts of Obamacare. Good, look, good for them, right? Sauce for the goose, sauce for the gander, right? This means that more pieces of Obamacare are very likely to go by the wayside. And it's becoming interesting. You have people out there who say, well, Obamacare hasn't been repealed. So many pieces of it now have come apart that it doesn't really exist and will not, especially over the next couple of years, really exist in anything like its original form. And yet it's still Obamacare, which is an interesting political challenge, I think, for folks on the left, especially for folks in Congress who supported it, to explain how, well, Obamacare is still there, but really it's not fair for, to blame Obama for Obamacare because it's changed as time has gone along. Pieces of it have fallen out. Hopefully what this will push us toward is actually scrapping the whole stupid thing and allowing what we need in healthcare, which is what we get at the grocery store, right? Less third-party payer, more choices, more competition, right? We need an environment where hospitals actually have to pay attention to us as customers, right? Right now, there's a big hospital across the street from the studio here, right? Their customer is government and insurance companies, not you. You may go in, you may need health care, but their customer is government and insurance companies. That's who their customers are, and Obamacare was a total doubling down on that model, right? Think about it. Everybody knows that. Obamacare doubled down on that model. More power to government, more power to health insurance companies, and that can only mean, because in this case, it's a fixed pie. Right? When those third-party payers get more power, you get less as an individual. That's just the way it is. And what we need to do is to push the power away from those parties and get it back to ourselves. Okay, last story for the week, last story for the show today. Labor union bosses really going against their labor union membership. Did you know that polls show that about 40% of labor union households vote Republican? About 40% of union members are Republicans, right? This isn't a partisan show, but this point is important when we show you this graphic that shows where labor union money goes. Why have labor unions been struggling in the United States, right? Why have they been losing membership for decades? Well, part of it is this mismatch between the union bosses, the people who run these union corporations, and unions are, by the way, corporations, and the union bosses, who are the executives of these corporations, tend to be either on the political left or on the political far left, right? So there's balance. They're either on the left or they're on the far left, right? Let's pull up the graphic here that shows where union money goes. I just told you that 40% of union households are Republicans, so somewhere on the right. 99% of union political money goes to either the left or the way out far left, right? We're talking about the Hillary Clinton to Bernie Sanders political spectrum sops up 90% of labor union money. Again, no wonder why the Oklahoma Education Association, no wonder why the local American Federation for Teachers, no wonder why they struggle to get members. They have to twist arms. They have to sort of pretend like, well, you've got to sign up with us because if you don't, you won't get insurance, even though that's not true. And then they overcharge you for the insurance, and then they actually spend a lot of the money on politics, but they don't want members to know that because the politics mismatches with where their members actually are. It's no wonder. This is one more research study looking at where labor union money goes that helps to explain why unions just aren't that popular in the United States anymore, right? And we've talked about this on the program extensively this year with experts like Vinnie Vernuccio from the State Policy Network and the Mackinac Center, and Jamie Lund from the Freedom Foundation up in Washington State, my former colleague. If you want to see those shows, you can go and you can find those in our archive at ocpathink.org. The whole archive is up there. You can even go back into the radio days. Find those show archives if you're interested. Remember, we're on iTunes, we're on the Google Play Music Store under podcasts, we're on Stitcher, we're on SoundCloud, and of course on Facebook and on YouTube. You're probably watching me in one of those places already saying, yes, I know this, Trent. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for watching the show. We'll be back with another week of shows, well, almost a week of shows. I mean, we're gonna have to take 2 days off next week, but we'll be back on Monday for sure. I'll see you then.